Number two, one fault that the conscious community has is, in this day and time, not holding black women accountable for their culpability with systematic white supremacy. You talk about, in this show, you're talking about the carryovers from slave breeding. That's one. The position that white men put black women in over black men as far as community rulership. That's why Brother Ankh was sitting there saying something like it'd be divisive to hold black women accountable for their culpability with white supremacy, which it is not. If I can understand that we as black men, or some of us as black men, feel responsible that we have not built Wakanda for black women and have eased their burden that they suffer under, due to systematic white supremacy. And I say to that, many of black men have, and many of black men have been disrespected by some women who have a low boiling contempt for us. So my message to the conscious community is change that.
Stuart, let me jump in on that, because I will say I personally vehemently disagree with you, because I've done a show talking about the environment that gave way to what you're talking about. And I think the responsibility starts with, if you go all the way, in a sense, from the very beginning of being brought to this land for, again, didn't, in a sense, let me be clear. I'm trying to be as clear as I can be. All of us didn't come here necessarily enslaved, but when that became prominent and how the majority of us began to come here, from that moment, it was, obviously different tribal issues in the sense of, one tribe would give away their enemy, if you will, and that's who would be sent here.
True.
But in that sense, here's where I'll say, here's the start of the environment, and I think it's, in my opinion, foolish to think that the accountability should lean towards a particular gender, because in the very beginning, from the moment we were brought to this land, not on our own accord, at that moment, the men, our ancestors, most were harmed by the fact that they could not protect the women that were with them, which had been something they were, in a lot of cases, able to do in their prior land. So in the event that all of these rewards have led to some of these things that you're calling accountability, it is played out both ways, because you are correct in, for example, when you offer how we jumped into pimping. But it is not abnormal for an oppressed group to take on the ways of its oppression. That is a normal psychological thing, and that factor has happened both to the men and women. And to highlight one gender over the other, in my opinion, is absolutely incorrect, because if you say black women finding favor with white men, our original ancestors gave way to that environment, and deep down psychologically, we as black men have been chasing ourselves to put ourselves back in place. And some of the ways that we have done it has not been through our own cultural mindset. It has been through the ways of our oppressors, which makes that difficult to mend that relationship. The relationship needs to be fixed.
I understand.
Go ahead, brother.
Right. I understand where you're coming from. And one thing about the male aspect is pride. And the one thing we as black men got to do is not necessarily swallow our pride, but put our pride to the side and tell the truth. True enough, it's not about holding women accountable in the sense of passing blame, but it is holding women accountable in the sense of some of the ill character traits that they picked up that works against both of us as a collective from the white supremacist system. Now, that has to be done. Now, wait.
Here it is. I'm not disagreeing with you. I just want to highlight this. So the dialogue, in my opinion, is that we both take the responsibility within our gender and have those conversations with us. Meaning, you and I as men, we hold each other accountable, right? And that's actually more receivable. And we have women in the culture that are also challenging within them, because it's not that you're wrong, it's that these things need to be done. I just know if as a teacher, If I have a class that I want to reach, I have to come up with the best way to reach them. And one of the ways we will not reach them, in my opinion, is to keep having the dialogue about what the other gender should be doing. It ain't even about
well, but
let me say this. I'm gonna let you jump in.
That's the problem.
I'm gonna let you hear this. It's not that you're necessarily that your information is incorrect, but if we're not aware of that it's not going to be received that way, then the onus becomes on us as the purveyor of the information. What's the best way for it to be received? And I'm just highlighting that the gender war gets challenged when we keep pointing the finger, knowing that there's responsibility that we need to take, and you acknowledge that, and there are sisters who understand it as well, and more of us doing that will get there versus, in my opinion, us keep saying what the other gender needs to do. I think it's just a bad approach to the information you're saying may be correct. I think it's a bad approach to delivering the message. That's what I'm challenging you on. I want to hear. Let me hear.
The one thing.
Go ahead. I want to hear Dr. Free's thought to this.
The one thing. The thing about what you just said is this: if we are going to correct our condition as a people, we have to take our feelings out of it and let the truth reign.
Nothing about what I'm talking about is feelings. Let me cut you off, brother, because I only got a few minutes. I want to hear Dr.
When you say,
I just want to get a woman's thought. Brother, I got to cut you off because you and I are going back and forth. I want to get the woman's perspective to what she just heard. Your thoughts, Dr. Free. We only got a few minutes. Go ahead, Queen.
All right. I want to say that I think we have a personal responsibility to check ourselves. And as we do that, that's mentioning what I said earlier. Once we do that, because I tend to agree with you that you want to be received, right? Y'all need to get it together, or y'all need to be, then that puts people on the defense a lot of times, right? But if it's, well, what can I do and how can I hold myself accountable, then when I hold myself accountable, it just automatically begins to influence the interactions that I have with others in a more positive way, right? Because I'm realizing, hey, well, what am I doing? Or how am I engaging the culture different? Or how am I engaging in the relationships that I have with other people? Because we all have responsibility that we have to consider.